Most people know about the Bible and think of it as your common religious book. However, I think it is way more than that. The Bible used to be a very big part in education systems. However, in 1963, the Supreme Court ruled it out as being unconstitutional due to the fact that it supposedly violated the First Amendment. In schools, we study many other religious texts and learn about religion just in general. We learn about Mormonism, Buddhism, and other examples. So why not Christianity, and why not the Bible? I believe that the Bible should be implemented into schools as a history book, not a religious book. And it turns out, I'm not the only one to think so. The Bible has actually been used in schools even after, in many different ways. A professor in college who teaches about religion uses the Bible in his class and talks about how he uses it. In it, he says, "My goals have been to teach about the history and literature of the New Testament from a non-confessional point of view, and to make students think hard about whatever their views might be. The goal is not religious, but humanistic." As well as that, school districts in Georgia have actually been implementing the Bible into 2 new classes. Senate Majority Leader Tommy Williams says, "The Bible plays a major role in history and is important in understanding many classic literature works." As well as that, Chuck Norris has actually said that over 1,350 schools in 37 states can now offer it as a textbook. And you can't argue with Chuck Norris. And as well as that, Chuck Norris is actually working to implement the Bible into other school districts. And ever since the Bible was taken out of schools, many violent crimes have actually increased. Criminal arrest of teens is up 150%, teen suicides up 450%, illegal drug activity is up 6,000%, child abuse cases up 2,300%, and violent crimes have risen 350%. And all of this has happened since the Bibles were taken out of school. Now you may be thinking, if we were to implement the Bible into schools, what makes it so accurate? Many people see the Bible as just a big story, but it is actually a ton of eyewitnesses and letters and biographies all mixed and put into one big book. People like Matthew, John, and James from the Bible wrote letters and biographies and just almost like a diary, and that's what ended up in the Bible. And if what they were writing was false, then it would have been shut down immediately, as 3,000 different people all agreed with the people at the time and have their own accounts of what happened that line up perfectly with the Bible. An example of this would be if I told you there was a huge fight in lunch. If I went out telling everybody there was a huge fight and there really wasn't, then everybody would be able to tell me that there wasn't a fight, and my story would have been shut down immediately. So, people would have disagreed with the writers from the Bible since they all had seen it for themselves. As well as that, in the Bible, it talks about very specific locations and references from its time. So if it talks about very specific locations, it would have been easy to disprove. Some examples of this would be Hezekiah's tunnel and the city of Jericho. As well as that, we can confirm everything in the Bible with books like the Torah, the Dead Sea Scrolls, and the Tel Dan inscription. And these scribes had such precision and such accuracy that we would have known if any of the copies that we have nowadays would have been changed. Now you may be wondering, why is this necessary? Well, the Bible takes up a huge chunk of time, so it would have been just history. As well as that, it can give context to many different things like Shakespeare writings and even things Julius Caesar talked about. And it turns out, it actually is constitutional. As Chief Justice Warren Burger said, the Constitution does not require complete separation of church and state. And the Supreme Court made a ruling not against the study of the Bible, but against the devotional religious use of the Bible. Court Justice Clark stated it might be well said that one's education is not complete without a study of comparative religion or the history of religion and its relationship to the advancement of civilization. As well as that, the Bible is actually the foundations of the Constitution. The people writing the Constitution took a lot of inspiration from the Bible. Quoting some of them, the principles of the Bible are the groundwork of human freedom, Horace Greeley. The Bible is a book worth more than all the other books that were ever printed, Patrick Henry. This study found that 94% of the documents that went into the founding era were based on the Bible, and that 34% of the contents were direct quotations from the Bible. So basically, our own laws and constitution was based on the Bible. Now, the one issue with this is the life of Jesus Christ. Now, many people don't ever argue about the existence of Christ, since he did exist and he was a historical figure. Evidence for Christ outside of the Bible are included in things like the Talmud, which were ancient writings from that time. According to William Ramsay of Oxford University in England, who was trying to disprove a part of the Bible, found that instead Luke, the writer of Acts, was one of the most accurate historians to have ever written. Now, in the time it was said that Christ performed many miracles. Now, you could maybe view this as just mythologies, almost like someone fighting a cyclops. However, Jesus did for sure die, and we have evidence of this. But we also have evidence that he was alive 3 days later. How is this possible? However, most people that have been trying to disprove it actually end up believing it being true instead of it being false. If the Bible is historically accurate and in fact Jesus did rise from the dead, would you take that as fact or religion? And really in the end, that's for you to look into and for you to decide.